GoldenEye wasn't just Pierce Brosnan's debut as James Bond, it was a miracle that almost never happened. From a 6-year legal nightmare to a stuntman jumping into the unknown, from 90,000 cans of emptied Perrier to a contest winner who waited years for her cameo, this film saved the Bond franchise from extinction. Here are 15 unknown facts about GoldenEye. Fact 1. Pierce Brosnan's entry into the Bond series was delayed by 2 separate medical emergencies. First, Brosnan required minor surgery for a back problem that pushed production back. Then, just before filming was set to begin, Brosnan suffered a bizarre and devastating injury. He reached for a porcelain towel rail in his bathroom, which suddenly snapped off the wall and cut him deeply. The accident severed a tendon in his little finger. Brosnan later said he felt like such an idiot for making that injury public, admitting that on the way to the hospital, he was thinking he couldn't believe it, so close to the role of a lifetime and now this catastrophic injury. The severed tendon kept him completely out of action for 5 full weeks. Due to insurance issues surrounding the injury, strict stipulations were imposed for the first 2 weeks of filming. Brosnan could not do any physical scenes whatsoever, and wasn't even allowed to hold the Walther PPK pistol, which rests on the little finger and might exacerbate the injury. Production had to carefully choreograph around Brosnan's wounded hand, while it healed enough for him to actually play Bond properly. Fact 2. During the legal nightmare, Timothy Dalton's contract expired while he waited for the lawsuits to resolve. When producer Albert Broccoli finally asked what Dalton planned to do once everything was settled, Dalton admitted he'd actually changed his mind about returning. He told Broccoli he'd love to do one more film, trying to take the best elements of his 2 Bond movies and consolidate them into a definitive third performance. But Broccoli responded quite rightly that after a 5-year gap, Dalton couldn't just come back and do one film. He'd have to commit to 4 or 5 more movies minimum. Dalton realized this would consume the rest of his life. In April 1994, he officially resigned, stating it was time to leave that wonderful image behind and accept new challenges. Dalton later clarified he supported Broccoli throughout the legal battle because he deeply respected him as both a producer and friend. By the time everything was resolved, Dalton was in his late 40s and felt he'd grown out of the part. The literary Bond is supposed to be in his mid to late 30s. He believed too much time had passed since License to Kill, so Dalton walked away, having never gotten the scripts he truly deserved. Fact 3. The opening sequence features one of cinema's most famous stunts, a breathtaking bungee jump off the Verzaska Dam in Switzerland. The jump measured over 220 meters or 722 feet, setting the Guinness World Record for highest bungee jump from a structure in a film. British stuntman Wayne Michaels performed the dangerous stunt, which took 2 full weeks to prepare. The production team consulted with bungee jumping experts at Oxford University, specifically the Oxford Stunt Factory, the university group that literally invented modern bungee jumping in the late 1970s. The experts warned that a jump from such an extraordinarily tall structure meant Michaels would be jumping into the unknown. Nobody had ever attempted anything like this before. There were countless things that could go wrong. Michaels jumped from a suspended platform to avoid smashing into the dam's steel peg-studded face. 6 cameras filmed the stunt simultaneously. A trauma clinic was on full standby, and an emergency helicopter circled nearby, ready to rush Michaels to hospital if anything went catastrophically wrong. In a 2002 Sky Movies poll, this bungee jump was voted the best movie stunt of all time. Wayne Michaels has a cameo in the film as one of the Tiger helicopter pilots shot by Xenia Onatop. If you want more videos like this, subscribe, like, and comment what movie you want us to cover next. Fact 4. License to Kill in 1989 used a contest advertising campaign to generate interest for the next Bond movie. The winner of that contest was promised a guaranteed cameo role in the following James Bond film. The winner was thrilled, but then MGM's bankruptcy and the 6-year legal nightmare happened. Production on the next Bond film didn't begin for many years. Nevertheless, the producers honored their commitment. After the extraordinarily long delay, the contest winner was finally given her promised scene in GoldenEye. She doesn't have a speaking part, but eagle-eyed viewers can spot her in a lovely golden black evening dress, looking over Xenia Onatop's shoulder during the casino baccarat scene when Famke Janssen plays against Pierce Brosnan. The woman had to wait from 1989 until 1995, 6 full years, to finally receive the prize she'd won. Most contest winners would have assumed the prize was cancelled and forgotten, but the Bond producers kept their word and made sure she appeared in the film even though the production circumstances had changed completely. It's a small moment of integrity in Hollywood's often ruthless business. Fact 5. One of the most absurd behind-the-scenes tasks involved a massive Perrier product placement. The tank chase includes a moment where the tank careens directly into a lorry truck filled with Perrier sparkling water to avoid a catastrophically fizzy explosion. When the 42-ton tank smashed into the truck at high speed, every single can of Perrier had to be carefully opened and emptied beforehand. 2 unfortunate crew members were assigned this mind-numbing task. They spent almost an entire week methodically opening and pouring out approximately 90,000 cans of Perrier. Imagine the tedium of opening can after can after can for days on end. The sheer volume of sparkling water they had to dispose of must have been staggering. The carbonation in that many unopened cans could have created a genuinely dangerous situation when crushed by the tank. So while it sounds comical, the task was actually a necessary safety precaution. Those 2 crew members earned every penny of their paychecks that week. The final shot looks spectacular on screen, and viewers have absolutely no idea that 90,000 cans had to be individually emptied to make it happen safely. Fact 6. Famke Janssen plays Xenia Onatop, one of Bond's most memorably sadistic villains. Her character murders a Russian admiral by strangling him with her thighs during sex, literally crushing him to death while making love. Director Martin Campbell originally filmed the scene to be intensely graphic and violent, pushing the boundaries of what could be shown on screen. The sequence emphasized Xenia's twisted pleasure in combining sexuality with murder, but American censors rejected the footage entirely. The scene was deemed far too racy and explicit for American audiences, even with an R rating. The production was forced to reshoot the entire sequence in a significantly toned down, less sexually violent version to satisfy the censors and secure the PG-13 rating that was crucial for box office success. The reshot version still conveys Xenia's deadly seduction, but pulls back from the graphic intensity of Campbell's original vision. Famke Janssen later joked that Xenia Onatop was the most fun villain she'd ever played, precisely because the character was so unrepentantly evil and sexually aggressive. The name itself, Xenia Onatop, is one of the franchise's most blatant sexual double entendres, perfectly capturing the character's lethal combination of danger and desire. Fact 7. The iconic tank chase through St. Petersburg is one of GoldenEye's most thrilling action sequences. Russian authorities initially agreed to let the production shoot the tank chase on the actual streets of St. Petersburg, but when authorities informed the filmmakers they would be financially liable for any damage whatsoever to the city's priceless historical buildings and monuments, the decision was immediately made to relocate the entire sequence to Leavesden Studios in the UK. Production designers meticulously recreated St. Petersburg's streets and faked all the relevant statues and cultural treasures, then gleefully smashed the replicas on the UK backlot. This didn't stop several breathless Russian newscasts from hysterically reporting that the filmmakers were destroying their art. The Soviet tank used in the sequence weighed 42 tons and was capable of speeds up to 35 miles per hour. The crew affectionately nicknamed it Metal Mickey. The massive tank chase sequence took 4 full weeks to film. To maximize visual impact, the tank was shot with a minimum of 4 cameras at all times, and on one occasion they used 6 cameras simultaneously. Pierce Brosnan's final day of production on June 1st, 1995, was spent driving that tank around Leavesden Studios. Fact 8. Following License to Kill's release in July 1989, pre-production work immediately began on the 17th Bond film, with Timothy Dalton returning for his 3rd appearance. A poster was even displayed at the 1990 Cannes Film Festival announcing the upcoming movie, but disaster struck. MGM, which controlled distribution rights to the Bond series, went through catastrophic financial collapse and bankruptcy in 1990. This triggered a massive legal battle between MGM and Danjaq, the company that owned the Bond film rights. The lawsuit centered on disputes over television and home video distribution rights. Production ground to a complete halt. Rival producer Kevin McClory simultaneously threatened to launch competing Bond projects, further complicating the legal mess. The lawsuits weren't settled until December 1992, with full resolution not coming until summer 1993 under entirely new MGM leadership. This created a 6-year gap between License to Kill and GoldenEye, still the longest hiatus in Bond history. Many in the film industry openly questioned whether Bond was even relevant anymore after the Cold War ended. Some felt it would be futile for the series to attempt a comeback, and that Bond was best left as an icon of the past. The franchise came terrifyingly close to permanent extinction. Fact 9. Pierce Brosnan had actually been selected as James Bond way back in 1986, intended to succeed Roger Moore starting with The Living Daylights. Brosnan completed a successful screen test and was officially cast. He even filmed the iconic opening gun barrel sequence for the movie. Everything was set, then disaster struck at the worst possible moment. NBC's television series Remington Steele, which had been cancelled, was suddenly revived specifically because of the massive publicity generated by Brosnan being cast as Bond. NBC exercised a contract clause forcing Brosnan to continue, starring in Remington Steele. Brosnan's existing contract legally prevented him from accepting the Bond role. He had to pull out literally at the last minute after everything had been announced. Timothy Dalton was quickly brought in as replacement. Brosnan watched his dream role disappear. Nearly a decade later, after Dalton resigned and the legal battles finally ended, the producer's first thought was Pierce Brosnan. In June 1994, Brosnan was officially announced as the new 007, finally getting the role that had been stolen from him 8 years earlier. The long, painful wait was finally over, and Brosnan got his second chance at destiny. Fact 10. GoldenEye couldn't film at Pinewood Studios, Bond's spiritual home where nearly every previous 007 film had been made, because Pinewood had been completely reserved for the production of First Night. With extremely little time to find adequate space that could accommodate the massive number of large-scale sets needed, Eon Productions discovered an abandoned former Rolls-Royce helicopter engine factory at Leavesden Aerodrome in Hertfordshire. The decommissioned aircraft plant had wide, tall, and open hangars that were uniquely suited to be converted into film stages. Eon leased the entire site for the duration of their shoot, then completely gutted the factory and transformed it into stages, workshops, and offices. They named it Leavesden Studios. The facility ultimately took up 1.25 million square feet of interior space with one of the biggest backlots in the entire world. GoldenEye became the inaugural film production ever shot at Leavesden Studios. The facility proved so successful that it was developed into a permanent major studio. Leavesden later became home to the entire Harry Potter film franchise, and now houses the Warner Bros. Studio Tour. What started as a desperate last-minute solution for GoldenEye accidentally created one of Britain's most important film studios. Fact 11. GoldenEye marked a watershed moment for the franchise. It became the first James Bond film ever to use computer-generated imagery. Even the famous gun barrel opening sequence that begins every Bond film was created using CGI for the first time, instead of traditional practical effects. The film utilized 140 digital effects shots total, which was considered extremely cutting-edge for 1995. The most prominent use of CGI appears during the climactic fight between Bond and Trevelyan on the massive satellite radio dish. The filmmakers simply couldn't achieve what they wanted using only practical effects and miniatures. The decision to embrace CGI was controversial among some Bond purists who felt it betrayed the franchise's commitment to practical stunts, but director Martin Campbell understood that technology had advanced enough to enhance rather than replace the practical work. GoldenEye walked a careful line between honoring Bond's practical stunt heritage while cautiously embracing the digital future. The CGI was seamlessly integrated and most viewers never consciously noticed it. This opened the door for future Bond films to utilize computer effects when appropriate, while still prioritizing real stunts and practical filmmaking whenever possible. Fact 12. Pierce Brosnan took his responsibility as James Bond extraordinarily seriously. Despite having waited nearly a decade for the role after losing it in 1986, Brosnan didn't approach GoldenEye with arrogance or overconfidence. Throughout the entire production, Brosnan kept a personal copy of Ian Fleming's novel Goldfinger nearby at all times. He would read passages between takes to help himself appreciate the enormous weight and cultural significance of the work he was doing. Brosnan wanted to understand Fleming's original vision for the character and honor the literary foundation, even though GoldenEye's screenplay wasn't based on any Fleming novel. The novel served as Brosnan's emotional and psychological anchor. During the intense pressure of debuting as Bond, he studied how Fleming described Bond's thoughts, mannerisms, and inner conflicts. Brosnan also has a severe fear of heights, which created additional challenges. He absolutely refused to go up to the Gregorian Dome and other elevated parts of Puerto Rico's Arecibo Observatory for the final confrontation between Bond and Trevelyan. Production required a stunt double to handle those sequences. Minus his height concerns, Brosnan's commitment to becoming the definitive 1990s Bond was total. Fact 13. While GoldenEye is the first Bond film not based on any Ian Fleming novel or short story, the title itself is a deeply meaningful tribute to Bond's creator. GoldenEye was the name of Ian Fleming's personal estate in Oricabessa, Jamaica, where he actually wrote all the James Bond novels and short stories. Fleming named his Jamaican home after Operation GoldenEye, a World War II intelligence operation. While working for British Naval Intelligence as a lieutenant commander, Fleming liaised with the Naval Intelligence Division to monitor developments in Spain after the Spanish Civil War ended. That classified operation was codenamed Operation GoldenEye. Fleming loved the name so much he later used it for his beloved tropical writing retreat. Every single Bond adventure was conceived and written at the GoldenEye estate in Jamaica. By naming the film GoldenEye, the producers paid homage to the physical location where Fleming's imagination created the entire Bond universe. It connects the film spiritually to Fleming, even though the screenplay contains no Fleming source material. The title acknowledges that without Fleming's Jamaican refuge called GoldenEye, James Bond would never have existed at all. Fact 14. GoldenEye marked a monumental changing of the guard. Albert R. Broccoli, who had produced or co-produced every single Bond film since Dr. No in 1962, stepped down from active production. This was the first Bond film not directly produced by Cubby Broccoli. His daughter Barbara Broccoli took over as producer alongside Michael G. Wilson, though Albert remained involved as a consultant producer. Barbara Broccoli had previously been credited as assistant director on Octopussy and A View to a Kill, and as assistant producer on The Living Daylights and License to Kill. GoldenEye marked the first time she received full producer credit, officially taking the reins of the franchise her father had built. Albert Broccoli's health was declining, and GoldenEye would be his final involvement with the Bond franchise before his death in 1996. The film is essentially his swan song, a final gift to audiences, and a successful handoff to the next generation. Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson have continued producing every Bond film since, maintaining the Broccoli family legacy. Albert Broccoli never got to see how successful GoldenEye became, but he knew his daughter and Wilson would protect the franchise. Fact 15.
Because if I want sarcasm, Mr. Tanner, I'll talk to my children. Thank you very much.
One of GoldenEye's most revolutionary changes was casting Judi Dench as M, the first woman ever to portray the character who had been male throughout the entire franchise history. The decision was controversial and risky in 1995. In the film, the new M wastes no time establishing her authority. She immediately calls Bond a sexist, misogynist dinosaur and a relic of the Cold War. She makes it clear his boyish charms are wasted on her, even though they obviously worked on the young woman she sent to evaluate him. This was the filmmakers directly addressing criticism that Bond himself was outdated in the post-Cold War 1990s. By having a strong woman call him a dinosaur to his face, the film acknowledged Bond needed to evolve. Dench brought gravitas, intelligence, and steel to M. She wasn't a maternal figure or romantic interest. She was Bond's boss, period. Dench's M was so successful that she continued playing the character through 7 Bond films spanning both Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig's tenures, finally retiring in Skyfall. Her casting proved that changing Bond's world didn't diminish the character. It revitalized him for a new era, while maintaining everything that made Bond iconic. From a 6-year legal death sentence to a world record bungee jump, GoldenEye's journey from impossible dream to box office triumph proved Bond could survive anything. Pierce Brosnan's debut saved the franchise from extinction and launched one of the most successful eras in 007 history, all while revolutionizing who could inhabit Bond's world. If you want more videos like this, subscribe, like, and comment what movie you want us to cover next.